One that, like you guys that are prepping for your black belt, this is stuff you know, but you need to reinforce, okay? And we're just going to cover it again, okay? Can I use you, big guy? All right, we're going to work on Ude Garami, the arm entanglement. Ude, arm, Garami means to wrap around or entangle, okay? Often called the bent arm lock, right? Lately it's become in MMA and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the Kimura, okay? Okay, great. But it's Ude Garami. It's been Ude Garami for a long time and still is here. So there are two basic variations, one up direction, one down direction. I want you guys, that's a fundamental skill I think everybody should know, especially if you're a black belt, you should know this as a teacher. Okay, so let's look on the basic up direction, okay? So aim your head toward James. There you go. All right, so different ways to put it on, okay? You come across sideways from the top. I like to sit on the guy in a lateral or I guess a vertical situation, I should say, where I get a better angle, especially on a big guy like this. I was always a fairly big guy, and I generally had to go against big-chested guys, so that's why I did this particular style. So Anthony, you might want to come up from this angle to get a better shot. So even if you're starting from the side position, you might want to come over the top and start working your move, okay? The key thing here to remember is have an arm under. We want to trap here, okay? We want to trap the wrist, elbow in the side here, and crank it, okay? Now, there are a lot of variations, you know, the cool way to grab that and cool stuff to do. But the thing here is, this is one basic of the two basic variations, upward direction, guys, upward direction. Grab the wrist, but before you grab the wrist, I always like to snake under here. I like to grab in here, and he might be fighting me, and I can get the wrist in, okay? Once you get the wrist, you got a high position on the shoulder, get a low position on the wrist, okay? Now once you do that, you can either hook here or drive here first, totally dependent upon what the circumstance is. Some guys like to hook up, form their triangle here, their figure four here, and then they drive their elbow in the side and crank. Some people put the wrist on the mat and crank up. I don't like to do that. If that works for you, do it, that's fine. But I like to have his arm up like this where I can crank it more. It puts more shoulder pain into it. It's not just an elbow lock, it's also a shoulder lock. And that's the Ude Garami there, okay? A couple things to remember. When I'm doing this, it's not an iron fast rule or ironclad rule, but if you can, with your thumb, get a thumb hook on his wrist, it might not always be possible, okay? But try to grasp that, and then I can control that better. Now this hand, I'm probably just going to meat hook it here. See that? I've seen guys make a fist and crank even harder there. And that really gives a lot more torque too, because it's side of the angle. Turn like that, it gives more torque in the wrist and the elbow. So either way, that works. But key things to point in: swing under here, snake under here, trap, elbow on the side of the neck. That's really important because there's your base, there's your anchor. Grab your wrist, however you do it, and crank upwards. I don't like to put it here and do that. I want the whole shoulder to move. And see how I'm doing it there. What he's going to do, he's going to try to power out. That's the most common way to stop that. So it's really important that I keep this nice and tight here, and I keep pulling in as I do this. And it keeps him, if this is just passive and not doing anything, he will get away, a strong guy like this. So once you hook it up in there, drive it here, keep pulling in toward his head and cranking. And that's a little point that really will help you keep that elbow in tight. And a lot of guys will. The natural thing is to try to power out of that. And it works fairly regularly if you don't have a good figure four formed up there on the upper position. So that's the upper position, Ude Garami. Let's do that first, then we'll work the lower position. Real basic stuff, I realize, guys. But once in a while we got to come back and cover this stuff like this, because this is the bread and butter of what we do. And if we forget the basics, we forget the basics. You can't forget the basics. Okay, let's cover this, work that, and we'll come with a lower position. Okay, let's work it. Thanks, guys.